This is Johnny and Jose with Tiger Bomb MMA, and we'll be going over UFC Fight Night Brunson versus Holland. We'll be going over the entire card from top to bottom and giving you our thoughts and predictions as always. To begin, we've got a fight that I'm not 100% sure is actually happening. We've got Johnny Eduardo versus Anthony Birchak at bantamweight. The only reason I say I don't think it's happening is because, again, the UFC website is a little weird because they have Anthony Birchak's name on there and a mystery fighter, yet everything indicates that it's a confirmed fight. So I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts on it. I do not trust Anthony Birchak's chin. His last fight, he lost to his buddy Gustavo Lopez by rear naked choke, but man, Gustavo Lopez really put it on him in that fight. Like, he showed that he was a superior fighter. Since then, we know we've seen Anthony Birchak in the UFC. He's had some success, but he ultimately succumbs to his weak chin. And I hate saying that, really, but it is what it is. I can't not tell the truth. Johnny Eduardo, on the other hand, very good striker, very good striking. Things going against him are that he's 40 years old, but he is Jose Aldo's striking coach or ex-striking coach. He's still good. He still has it, but he's made some really boneheaded mistakes in his last two fights against Matthew Lopez, where he got knocked out, which was 3 years ago. He was doing really damn well, and then he attacks a knee bar or a heel hook, just a leg lock in general, and he just gets pounded out. Matthew Lopez just ground and pounded him in Brazil, which was embarrassing. And then against Nathaniel Wood, I remember betting Nathaniel Wood. I wasn't too sold on Nathaniel Wood completely, but I'd heard other people talking about how great he was, and he was coming in here from England. His training coach was Brad Pickett. So I'm like, I'll give him a shot. Johnny Eduardo's beating his ass, and then Johnny Eduardo decides to go for a takedown and then gets locked in a Darce choke. So I'm like, man, I don't know like what to think about this matchup. The odds are currently a little bit fluctuating. Anthony Birchak minus 115, Johnny Eduardo minus 105. So it looks like there's a trend that Anthony Birchak is getting betted on. Ultimately, though, Johnny Eduardo is still a pretty damn good striker at 40 some years old, even when he was 38. Like, I still think he has enough pop in his punches. And again, I can't trust Anthony Birchak. I will go Johnny Eduardo to catch Anthony Birchak with something, maybe really early, and then it just dictates the rest of the fight. And I don't even think this goes past one round. I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Birchak knocks out Johnny Eduardo, because Eduardo, again, is older and his chin isn't what it used to be. But man, for sure, Anthony Birchak's chin isn't where it should have been or nearly where it should be. So I'll go with Eduardo to win this one by first round knockout.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I think this is not a recent. I guess it's more of a name recognition fight. People going with Anthony Birchak over Johnny Eduardo. Johnny Eduardo isn't really. Not that Anthony Birchak has that super, name recognition, but he has been around the block in the UFC several years ago, which he had mixed results. His first time around in the UFC, he traded wins and losses. He did have, actually, no, he didn't have, that sort of, win where, it stamps like, hey, I belong in the UFC sort of thing. And since coming back to the UFC, he hasn't actually looked very good either against what I would say is good, great competition. He should have, beat Gustavo Lopez. Didn't. Well, ideally, he should have, just based on his experience. But unfortunately, Gustavo Lopez choked him out. Now, that isn't to say that I'm all that high on Johnny Eduardo. As you mentioned, he is 40 years old. So I would imagine he's going to look his age, despite, him being, Aldo's striking coach or whatever. 40 years old is 40 years old, man, unless USADA decided to turn a blind eye and let him get all juicy for this fight. I think he's going to look his age, and despite Burchak's chinny chin chin, I think Burchak's going to have enough to maybe eke out a win, maybe I would say a split decision. And the reason I say that is because Eduardo's career didn't start out all that well. He did lose. I should point out that he did lose to Takanori Gomi back in 1999, and in Valetudo, Japan, and his career has not gone all that well since then. At that point, he was 11-3, and he's 28-11, which isn't anything to scoff at. But he's 40 years old, so that's that's 22 years old at this 22. So he was what, 18 at the time. Yeah, man. I'm gonna base his career just on that single Takanori Gomi fight loss, and yeah, I'm gonna take Anthony Birchak. Just him not being as old as Eduardo. Yeah, I don't know why I'm babbling on, but I'm Johnny Eduardo lost to Takanori Gomi in 1999, so that doesn't look good to me. So Burchak by split decision.
Next up at flyweight, we've got a fight between JP Buys and Bruno Bulldog Silva. I initially had my thoughts on this matchup before watching tape, and then after watching tape, I kind of had a more solid idea. I'll give you the breakdown on the odds. Currently, JP Buys is at a minus 190. Wow, minus 190, and Bruno Silva plus 160. I am actually looking to go with Bruno Silva. I know his last two losses have been interesting, but I've liked what I've seen from him, especially with the Tajir Ulanbekov loss. He really went after that fight, and I man, it was pretty damn incredible seeing his fight with Khalid Taha and how that went, and how he came back and actually fought Ulanbekov was like night and day, because he looked completely outclassed on the feet against Taha. And then, say, two fights later, he lost to David Dvorak. But what was really impressive was that Tajir loss. I know it's weird to say I was impressed by a loss, but man, frankly, if they would have given it to Bulldog, I wouldn't have batted an eye. It was quite the performance. As for JP Buys, I know he's on a pretty good win streak. He's 9-2. He's got the advantages right now. He's a 2-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. He's training at Fortis MMA, but Bruno Silva's training at Fight Ready. I don't know, man. Like I've seen some things about JP Buys that I like his wrestling is good, his submission attacks are good. His gas tank, though, it leaves a little to be desired. His last fight with Jacob Silva was interesting because you can make the argument that that choke wasn't really on, and they just gave him the choke. I know Jacob Silva protested that. Even Dana White kind of told him like, "Hey, shit happens. Don't worry. Like we might bring you back." But I just really like the damn tenacity of Bruno Silva, his ability to just say, "Screw it, I'm going to go after you," and try to steal the round. And like I just liked what I saw. If he continues in that route, I think he might potentially, climb up the rankings. So I'll go with the underdog and Bruno Silva just because I really liked what I saw in that loss. I can't say too much about JP Buys, to be honest. Like he has good qualities, but I just think when the going gets tough, he'll just break. I think Bulldog Silva would just be the one to break him. So I'll go with Silva to win this one by decision. If not, I can actually see him breaking him in the later rounds, maybe round number 3. But I'll go with decision for Bruno Silva.
I agree. I think Bruno has actually fought, even though he has lost two. Well, I guess he has one no contest. So I guess he's only lost 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 of his UFC fights. Though they were decision losses. It's not like he got pieced up and knocked out or submitted in like the first minute of each of those fights. So they're not terrible fights. And I mean, he was facing Dvorak and Ulanbekov, so these are pretty experienced guys. And based off of some of that experience, I think has rubbed off on him. Some of that technique or something. I think even in losses, a lot of fighters, when they face high level competition, I think some of that rubs off on them. And I think some of that may have rubbed off on Bruno. Versus, this guy JP, he is, the significantly younger guy. And at that, I would say JP is actually closer to his prime than Bruno at this point. Not that Bruno's over the hill, but in these lighter weight classes, I would say a lot of the time the younger guys are favored, not necessarily by the odds, but just in terms of their youth. I would say maybe, I'll say on average, maybe 28, 29 is maybe when guys reach their, what do you call it? It's on tip of my tongue. Prime. That was a hard word for me. I would say so. Yeah, so I think at this point, JP Buys is on the upswing, but I don't think he's faced the same level of competition as Bruno Silva. So I think Bruno Silva will probably have just enough to. I'll take Bruno Silva by split decision in this one. I don't really have any, much more to say than that.
Our next matchup at women's bantamweight, we've got Raging Panda Julia Avila versus Dolidze Storliarenko. That was hard for me to say. I'll bet you to see which one of us can accurately describe this one in fewer words. Julia Avila, striking. Stoliarenko, grappling question mark. It was tough watching her highlights, if you want to call them that. She's got sloppy striking. She's got some ground skills, but man, it was a tough watch. Julia Avila, we've seen this one. We know what we get with her. She's got power on her punches. She's kind of a blitzer, but if you get her to the ground, she's kind of a fish out of water. The odds are minus 350 for Avila and plus 285 for Stoliarenko. I'll go with Avila to get this one, probably first round knockout. I don't care. I'll skip this one.
Yeah, this is this is going to be a garbage performance. I think on both ends. Avila is going to come out like a Karen, looking for for the manager. She's going to just have flashbacks to when she didn't get that 1 cent discount at Walmart. She's going to go in there and she's going to bombard Stoliarenko with requests to see that manager with her fists. Yeah, I mean, they're both coming off losses, and the worst, I think the loss that reflects the worst is definitely Avila, because she came out with her usual she's called Raging Panda, but I think another name suits her. I'm not going to say it just because we're trying to be a little bit more politically correct on this channel, but she lost against Sijara Eubanks, who in herself is barely above 500 in her record. And she was a heavy favorite. She was one of those hype trains that got derailed so badly, and she fucked me over pretty bad because I did bet on this woman. Julija, however, she did lose to Yana Kunitskaya. It wasn't the most inspiring performances on either fighter's end. Yana basically just pushed her and held her up against the cage. It was a garbage performance by Yana. And Julija just kind of stood there and didn't know what to do. Julia's gonna have not a similar approach. She's just gonna what's the word I'm looking for? Come forward and just throw sloppy punches. I think she's the what's this guy's name? Francis Ngannou of this division, in that she just basically she just comes in and throws windmill punches, and she's just going to overwhelm Julija, probably take her out within the first round, I would say, because Julija's not going to know what to do. But I've spent about maybe way more minutes than I should have on this fight. This is a garbage fight, in my opinion. I could care less who wins, but I think Avila is going to take her out by TKO.
Our next matchup at bantamweight, we've got Montel Jackson versus the newcomer Jesse Strader. I didn't know much about Jesse Strader other than the fact that he fought at Combate Americas. He actually lost to Marcelo Rojo. The odds are currently plus 450 for Jesse Strader, roughly around a minus 500 for Montel Jackson. And it's very, very understandable. This kid's coming in here 5-1, coming in from Combate America. Clearly, he hasn't been fighting the best competition, not necessarily the worst, but not the best, against a guy who, he's been fighting some pretty damn good competition. His last loss for Montel Jackson was a loss to Brett Johns, where I actually bet Montel Jackson, and it really cemented that although a guy can be so damn talented and so damn good, that there's always something that they have as a weakness, and his weakness is really being controlled in the grappling aspect. Because Brett Johns, I think that was his last fight before he retired, and he just kind of rode him out and out grappled him, which good for him, right? Good for Brett Johns, but man, Montel Jackson, like his two losses in the UFC in period have been to really good grapplers, and Jesse Strader isn't really the best grappler from what I've seen. I will give him props, right? I'm watching his tape and I'm not overly impressed. And then when his last fight happened about 2 years ago against some guy named Isaiah Gonzalez, he landed a really nice 4 punch combination, body head, knocking him out clean. I'm like, whoa! Like if he can tighten some things up, he'd be a really fun addition to the bantamweight division in the UFC. Unfortunately, though, he has to take this ass whooping. Uh, Montel Jackson just got too much for him. He's going to be the bigger guy. He's 5'10" compared to Strader's 5'8". The reach advantage. I think he's just more explosive. He's just got the cleaner striking. I would not be surprised if Strader catches Jackson, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's even in the realm of possibility to happen in this fight. Montel Jackson is just superior in every way, and this being a short notice fight, Jackson wins this one by knockout first round.
I agree. I think Jackson has more experience, even though he has two losses in the UFC. But those two losses are to, I would say, average, slightly above average guys, somewhat, compared to Jesse Strader. I was taking a look at Jesse Strader's record, and I was initially going to go with Jesse Strader, except that he did beat the lesser Jackson. He beat Michael Jackson 2 fights ago. It was a little over, actually, about 2 years, close to 2 years ago. A win over Michael Jackson is, I don't know who that is, but he beat him in Combate Americas. He did knock him out by second round KO, looks like. But Montel Jackson, the superior Jackson, is a whole other deal. He does, as you mentioned, his kryptonite is grappling, and so he can become a turtle on the ground. If he's on his back, he does have hard time getting back up. He can be controlled, but I don't think Jesse Strader is that guy who's going to control him on the ground, control him against the cage and such. So I'm going with the superior Montel Jackson, Quick Jackson. I don't know if that's an appropriate nickname, but I think he just has the experience. His experience is going to get him the decision win here. Montel Jackson decision.
Next up at middleweight, we've got another short notice fight. Trevin the Problem Giles versus Roman Dolitze. Giles was initially set to fight Dricus du Plessis in a fight that I did so much damn research for, flip flopping, and they pull out Roman Dolitze, which is like a completely different matchup. Dolitze has been fighting at light heavyweight, which is concerning because he's dropping down to middleweight. I know he's been talking about doing that, especially in his last fight against John Allen. He mentioned I might drop down the middleweight, but I don't know how well that weight cut's going to go. So that poses a completely different problem and matchup with Trevin Giles. Currently, the line is at plus 120 for Giles, Dolitze minus 140, which is, it's accurate, right? Trevin Giles, although he did get a win over Bevon Lewis, I think the third round knockout, he has been improving, especially since his last fight prior to that with James Krause, the most controversial fight of that night. Everyone thought James Krause easily won that fight 2 rounds to 1. It is what it is, though. He pulled it out of his ass. His issues though are with the chokes, right? We've seen Zach Cummings get him in a guillotine. We've seen Gerald Mearshot get him in a guillotine. These are two guys he is more explosive than, I would say stronger than, and he somehow, I don't know what it is, like he's a habitual choker, literally. And although knocking out Bevon Lewis, he did look improved. It just seemed like a weird bully matchup with Bevon Lewis, because we've seen the digression of Bevon Lewis in the cage where he came in here beating Uriah Hall, and then after that knockout, it's just like he's a shell of himself. So it really looked like Trevin Giles dictated the entire pace and just bullied him around the cage, just kind of punking him out. I don't think that's going to work with Roman Dolidze. If Roman comes in here on weight and he looks good, I think he's going to have a pretty easy matchup. Dude, like the last fight with Roman, in his fight with John Allen, he had one of the most badass moments. Although he didn't get the submission, he asked his corner, he's like, "Do you want me to sub him?" And they're like, "Yes." Like, okay, I will sub him. And he goes for like the heel hook. I'm like, man, this guy's fucking ballsy. He can't be doing that though, because he'll give up position. But the fact that he's willing to go and take chances, he's got knockout power. He knocked out the great Khadis Ibrahimov. We all know how great he is, and he's on an 8-0 streak right now. He hasn't lost. I did like the fact that he went to 3 rounds with John Allen in his last fight. It was a little too close for comfort for me. I had a bet on him. I max betted Roman, made some pretty good money, but I think he's just the overall better fighter. I think he hits harder. I think his submission game is better. The only concern is the weigh-ins. As long as he comes in on weight and there's no funny business, I think he should take this easily. Maybe a possibility for a live betting situation, because if Roman maybe misses weight, he's going to look good in the first 2 rounds. But if he can't put away Trevin Giles, I wouldn't put it past Trevin Giles to come back and put it on Roman Dolidze. But for sure, my pick will be Dolidze by decision.
I agree. You actually hit it right on the mark. I think this is definitely uh, probably the first great live betting situation of the night. I would say if I would say I would maybe give Roman, if he doesn't come in looking, all punch drunk or something during the weigh-ins, or if he does, I should say, then yeah, I would give him maybe 1 round of good cardio, and then we've seen fighters go downhill toward the end of the first round, even. But I do, Roman is part of this pack of Georgian fighters that are just, trying to stamp their, make a name for themselves in the UFC. And I was pretty impressed. I've been pretty impressed by him in his last few fights, especially against. I would say, yeah, that John Allen fight impressed me. I would say that impressed me more than the Khadis Ibrahimov knockout. I'm pretty high on this guy Roman. I'm pretty intimidated by him, especially the picture that they have up on him on Tapology right now. It's intimidating me this very moment. But I just don't think Trevin Giles has, even though his record, he has more fights, 13, 14, almost twice the fights of Roman. They're not. I don't think that. I don't think his experience. I don't think that equates to having twice as much, having the better experience. Having, yeah, I just don't think his skill set and his experience match Roman. I think Roman's career in general is on upward trajectory, and I think Trevin's going to be his latest victim. I would say I'll take Roman by 3rd round submission to make it interesting.
Our next matchup, a hell of a fight, man. At lightweight, Grant Dawson versus Leandro Santos. And if I'm correct, I think this is his first fight for Grant Dawson at lightweight. Man, this one's like a real back and forth for me. When it comes to the odds, Grant Dawson -200, the comeback on Santos +170. The reason I find this matchup so damn interesting is because, man, Grant Dawson's 27 years old. We've seen him dominate dudes on the ground with his wrestling and his pace. Leandro Santos is 41 years old, and he does not look 41 in that cage. Like every time he fights, I count him out, and he comes back and he does something spectacular. Looking at his last 5 fights, a submission win over Rocco Martin, a knockout over Kevin Lee, a split decision over Andrew Martin. Stevie Ray knocked him out cold, and his last fight was a fight with him and Roman Bagatov, the one where he essentially almost disqualified the guy. He looked good in that matchup as well. I think he was the underdog there, and he pulled it off. There are some concerns with this matchup because I think Leandro Santos, for his age, is still really good. I almost curse there. I know some of those wins that I mentioned are 5 years plus. This guy's not the most active guy. That might play into his favor because he's not taking so much punishment, but the body does deteriorate when it gets older. So it's like a very, very, very good matchup. If this was happening maybe a couple years ago, maybe say 3 years ago, and Grant Dawson is the version of Grant Dawson he is now, I would go with Leandro Santos. But Grant Dawson is just, and I've liked what I've seen from this kid. He's training with the almighty Glory MMA and Fitness with James Krause, so that does help him, especially because, as I mentioned before, there are some fighters from that camp that do very well with James Krause. Like they listen to him and they just click. And there's other fighters, I don't want to say who, Megan Anderson, that they don't know what the hell they're doing with such knowledge. So I can't go against Grant Dawson. There's going to be some hairy moments because Leandro Santos can submit Grant Dawson. He can even knock him out. As long as Grant Dawson is, careful with his shots when he takes him down, I think he should be okay in controlling him. If he, keeps it at distance and uses his strikes and kicks against Leandro Santos, I think he can easily outpoint him. If he implements a calf kick, especially with Leandro Santos, when his 41-year-old ankles and calves, I think he'll break him down. But man, it's a very tough fight. It should be a pick 'em in my opinion, just based on how dangerous Leandro. Keep calling him Leonardo Santos. Keep doing that for like the last few months. I've been calling him Leandro, but Leonardo Santos. As long as he stays away from those dangerous spots on the ground, I think Grant Dawson takes it. So I'll go by decision, possibly even a split decision. Yes, Santos is a tough guy. I've enjoyed watching his progression in the cage and his ability to just come back and prove a point, knocking dudes out he shouldn't be knocking out, and then submitting dudes that he, granted, Rocco Martin's been submitted multiple times, but very impressed by this guy overall. But I'll still go with Grant Dawson. Just can't bet on that youth, man. He's much younger. He's moving up in weight. He's going to feel fresher. So I think he'll dominate Santos.
I agree, and I'm basing my decision based on Leonardo Santos. So I'm going to base my decision on Leandro having lost to Takanori Gomi back in 2002. He lost to him in the Shuto promotion.
What do you have
And
against Takanori Gomi?
he lost against Takanori Gomi, man.
That's what I'm saying.
That's dude. Guys who have lost to Takanori Gomi haven't had the best of careers, and sure, while he's on a 7 fight win streak in the UFC. This is spread out to back to 2013, man. He fights, he's been fighting once a year, if that. Going back to 2013, he skipped 2017 and 18. And yes, he is 41 years old and he's fighting guys, and beating guys that I guess, in a lot of people's minds, maybe he shouldn't be beating. But Grant Dawson, he's I think he's that guy that's going to put a stop to this. I'm going to take Grant Dawson by decision. I think he's just going to have youth and volume on his side. But I'm staying away from this fight. I do see Grant Dawson, getting his hand raised in victory. But realistically, I'm probably staying as far away from this fight as I am from any of the women's fights. Even though I have that bias because this guy did lose to Takanori Gomi. There's that whole Takanori Gomi angle, man. Grant Dawson by decision. Yeah, this should be a pick 'em, definitely. But 41 years old, that's hard to overlook, man. This guy is not exactly what's his name, the best jiu-jitsu guy in the welterweight division.
Damian Maya.
Damian Maya, yeah. I mean, when I think of Leandro Santos, I don't think Damian Maya. So unfortunately for him, Grant Dawson is going to come in and take care of business.
Our next matchup at bantamweight, we've got what the fourth time we've been reviewing this fight: Marion Renaud versus Macy Chasson. The odds currently are plus 175 for Renaud, minus 225 for Chasson. We've picked Chasson each and every time first round knockout. Just because we want this fight to happen, I'm going to go the opposite route. I'm going to go Marion Renaud third round submission, just because don't I'm tired of breaking this one down. So Marion Renaud, screw it, third round submission.
Yeah, I'm going to take Marion Renaud, actually second round submission, and by inverted reverse armbar rear naked choke.
You heard it here first. And before we break down the main card, I'd like to ask you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We really appreciate the comments, especially those of you who have been commenting on our previous videos. Keep it up. We like seeing that. We love responding to you guys and love knowing what you guys think. Our next matchup at strawweight, this fight is opening up the main card. We've got Cheyenne Buys versus Montserrat Ruiz, the Conejo Mad. No, I thought it was just Conejo. Conejo translates into bunny or rabbit in Spanish. And Cheyenne Buys, man, like I know she came in here. She's the wife of JP Buys, so she's got that thing going for her. The thing is, when I was breaking down this fight, I know it was a last second fight. I forgot who she was initially fighting, Cheyenne Buys, but it was a closer matchup. But Montserrat Ruiz, watching tape on her, although her record's what 9-1, I saw some things in there I didn't like because I was looking to fade Cheyenne Buys. I know she was going to come in here with that name recognition, but it was kind of a hard watch. Currently, the odds are not out. They're very, very new. So yeah, I don't have odds on this one yet. I'm more than likely going to assume that Cheyenne Buys will be the favorite. Cheyenne Buys comes in here 5-1 compared to the 9-1 record for Conejo. It's concerning because although she has more experience on Ruiz's side, it was weird. It was hard to watch what she was doing. She's just not very explosive. She's not very athletic. She's got a decent ground game, but overall, she's just not overly impressive. I think Cheyenne Buys is just going to really piece her apart because she's the quicker fighter. I think she's a more fluid fighter. She's more active on the feet. She throws kicks. I think Ruiz is more focused on her punches. I think it's going to be an easy night for Cheyenne Buys. I think it'll cement her as the superior Buys. And yeah, I've got her to win this one. Really, she can do it anyway. I know her last fight in the Contender Series was a decision. It was a fight she should have finished, but I just like what I've seen from her. I can potentially even see her getting a submission, whatever she wants, but I'll go with decision for Cheyenne Buys.
I agree. This isn't really I don't know who got paid off to get this in get this to open up the main event. But anyway, I'm going with Cheyenne Buys as well by 29-28 decision. She hasn't faced the greatest competition in her pro career. She does, however, have quite a bit more extensive experience in her amateur career. She did, I would say, losing to Jillian Robertson. Well, it just so happens that Jillian Robertson is a Takanori Gomi of her of her gender and division. So that doesn't really look good. All that good for Cheyenne Buys. But styles make matchups, and I think her integrating kicks into her game versus Montserrat, who is basically a boxer, will edge her out. So I don't know, maybe Montserrat takes a round. Who knows? She might have enough volume maybe in the first round to befuddle her. But I think Cheyenne definitely takes at least 2 rounds in this fight. But still, that loss to the female Takanori Gomi doesn't recall like.
Our next matchup at welterweight, we've got a fight between Max Payne Griffin and Song the Assassin Kenan. I like this matchup. I think one of these guys is going to get knocked out. And whoa, I just looked at the odds. I was like, oh my God, I hadn't seen the odds until now. And you have your ideas of like, oh, I think I know who's going to win. I think I know who the favorite is. Max Griffin minus 170, Kenan Song plus 145. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I got Kenan to win this one. I just call him Song. I got Song to win this one. I think handedly. I think he's improved since his last few fights. I think I understand the reason why he's so, I guess, undervalued in this spot, because Max Griffin, I know he's fought the better competition. He's fought Alex Oliveira, Alex Morono, uh, Thiago Alves. I think he also lost to Curtis Millender. He got his ass beat by Colby Covington. As for Kenan Song, his last loss was against Alex Morono. Mainly, they both lost to Morono. And say what you want about Morono, is that he's a pretty damn good fighter. Like, he may not be the best athletically or the best, genetically, but he puts in work, and you can't deny that. He puts in his game plans. As for Keenan, that Derek Krantz fight was concerning. It was very, very concerning because he was going to run through him. This guy comes in on short notice, and he kind of gassed out. It was a very sloppy performance where Song Kenan really edged out that win. But I think he's learned his lesson from that fight. He's training at Tiger Muay Thai now. I think they're going to get him on point. His issue, though, is that he's not very active sometimes. He doesn't move forward a lot. He's a very good counter striker. And Max Griffin will go forward. It's just, I don't know if I can trust him to take the punches of Song Kenan. Max Griffin, though, like his last win, he exploded the year of Ramiz Brahima, which was impressive to watch. It's just, honestly, I don't think Brahima really belonged to be in the cage with Max Griffin. Max Griffin is a veteran of the sport. And it's just, there's going to be some spots where he looks impressive, but I don't think it warrants him being, a minus 170. I got Song Kenan. I think he just hits harder. Even if he's getting out volume by Max Griffin, I think Song just has to land one good one, and he'll win him the round, because I think, Song Kenan will be able to catch the chin of Max Griffin, maybe put him down, maybe not finish him, but I think he's going to put a beating on him. So I'll go with Kenan to get this one by decision. You are muted. There you go.
Yeah, that was me. I was talking and I was like, oh, okay. Sorry about that. All right. Keenan. I've been calling this guy Keenan Song all week. That's what it looks like to me, man. Is it Kenan? Really, Keenan? Right now, man. Because anyway, I pictured a different looking guy when I saw Keenan Song. I was like, huh, okay. I pictured somebody looking more like Max Griffin, him. Anyway, so Max Griffin, what can I say about this guy? He's faced, the better competition. He's gotten his ass beat by better competition, but it doesn't seem like this guy, I would say his most notable UFC win is Mike Perry, but what does that really say? I mean, as far as name recognition, he's gotten beat by Colby Covington, Elizu Zaleski, Curtis Millender, Thiago Alves, BJ Penn would say Alves, whatever. And most recently, within the last year, he's got, almost to the day, he got beat down by Alex Cowboy Oliveira and Alex Morono. Doesn't look all that great. Yes, he did beat Ramiz Brahimaj not too long ago. But I mean, he is not. He alternates wins and losses. Well, at least he has in the UFC. And funny enough, he did get beat by Jordan Williams in his amateur career. Meanwhile, I'm gonna call him Keenan Song. Funny enough, Keenan Song actually had lost to Israel Adesanya but that was what, 6 years, 5, 6 years ago, and we all know, what Adesanya has done since then. But Keenan hasn't done too bad for himself either. I don't really see Max Griffin, just based on his record. It looks like Max Griffin is set for a loss on his record because he, as I mentioned, his record, he alternates losses. In some cases, multiple losses. So I think just based off of that, just go with Keenan by TKO second round.
Our next matchup, we've got Adrian Yanez versus Gustavo Lopez. Man, I'm looking forward to this one. I've really been impressed by Adrian Yanez, especially when he won me a ton of money on the Contender Series. And Gustavo Lopez, he, as we mentioned earlier, he did beat Anthony Birchak, where he just looked the superior of the two. Like, no doubt about it. Like, it just kind of sucks when you're in there with a friend of yours and a training partner, and you're buddy buddy, and he kind of lets up on you on training, and then when you're in actual fight, he beats the crap out of you. So it's like it's a nasty feeling. Be like, oh man, he kicked my ass. So that's what I think about Gustavo Lopez. He's just the superior to Anthony Burchak. That's not saying much overall, but the odds are currently minus 200 for Yanez, and Gustavo Lopez comes back at plus 170. It's a good fight. The odds are understandable. Yanez has been looking really good. It's on a 5+ fight win streak. His last win was over Victor Rodriguez, which was a head kick knockout. He knocked out Brady Huang in the Contender Series. And when I was watching tape on him back then, his striking was so fluid. His punches were clean. The only thing I can say about him is that he doesn't really move his head as much as I would like for a guy who's primarily a boxer. And another concern was, like, what if he gets taken down? Or what if someone shoots a takedown on him? And what I saw from the fight with Victor Rodriguez was that Rodriguez was kind of he was hopping around, like moving around, like Clay Guida, trying to like confuse Adrian Yanez, but Yanez stayed composed and calm, did not look deterred whatsoever. Even in the takedown attempts with Rodriguez, where he had him against the cage, he looked calm. And it's going to sound weird, but he reminded me a lot of Jorge Masvidal against the cage. He just stayed really calm, like he knew what he was doing. He didn't panic. Gustavo Lopez, frankly, he has a lot of that type of movement that was implemented by Victor Rodriguez. He kind of feints a lot, throws hooks. It's a very interesting matchup because Gustavo Lopez would have to implement his wrestling in this fight because Yanez, I think, outmatches him by power and speed and just overall technique. It really is Adrian Yanez's fight to lose because I think he should win this one by knockout, first, second, third, whenever. He should win it pretty comfortably. It's just that Gustavo does pose some elements of his game that could give Yanez some problems. Like if he consistently goes for takedown defense and keeps him up against the cage. I know Yanez isn't like the greatest wrestler. He's primarily a striker, but from what I've seen, as what I mentioned, is that Yanez doesn't really panic against the cage. I think if he gets taken down, he'll be calm and get back up and then really implement his striking. I really like this kid. Man, I'm going to go with Yanez to win this one. I'm going to say second round knockout. I do like Gustavo Lopez. I like what I've seen from him despite his loss to Marab. Marab didn't finish him. Marab should have gone in there and destroyed him. But, I like what I've seen from Gustavo Lopez. It's just that I don't think it's going to be enough to beat Yanez on this night. So I'll go with Yanez again, second round knockout.
I agree completely. Well, the fact that Marab didn't go in and finish him is more on Marab than it is, Gustavo Lopez being this, great counter grappler or whatever, or defensive grappler. That's more of the developed release weakness. He just, rides that crotch to victory. Uh, yeah, man. I really can't overlook something on Gustavo Lopez's. Well, I mean, the Vishvili loss aside. Uh, this guy lost to Andre Ewell a few years ago in King of the Cage, which kind of jumps out at me. He also lost to Kenny White about 8 years ago, and we all know who Casey. Did I say Kenny White? Casey White. Casey White is the white Takanori Gomi of that division. Um, so yeah, man, we're Takanori Gomi's the guy today. I mean, both fighters are. You know, I would say Adrian is closer to his prime, being at 27 years old. Not that Gustavo's, far over the hill, but I think his, I think he should have reached, that pinnacle already, at his age in this, especially in this division. Not only that, but I think Adrian is going to have, has the volume and the fighter IQ, and as you mentioned, he doesn't freak out when things are, when things aren't going his way. If he's getting pushed on the cage or if maybe he gets outstruck a little bit. I like his composure. I think Adrian's gonna screw it. I'll take Adrian Yanez by rear naked choke, second round.
In our next matchup at heavyweight, we've got the return of Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa and Lord Kong Dante Mays. I'll start with the odds on this one because I think they're fascinating. We've got minus 250 for Tai Tuivasa and the return on Dante Mays plus 210. Are you willing to bet Tai Tuivasa at that line at minus 250?
Jesus. Wait, is that a rhetorical question? Or are you really asking me?
I'm asking. It is
Oh,
a rhetorical question, but I'm asking still. I'm asking the audience. Are you willing to bet that much on Tai Tuivasa?
Jesus. I mean, the guys who say yes, please show us your betting slips.
Yeah, because that's insane. His last win was against Stefan Struve. Since then, we've seen the ups and downs of Tai Tuivasa. His last win before that was Andre Arlovsky, which a lot of people consider that to be like a gifted decision because Andre did kind of look pretty good. He lost to Junior Dos Santos, a fight which would have cemented him. That was his first main event, if I recall correctly. So cement him in the division, like, oh wow, here's the next version of Mark Hunt. Back when Mark Hunt still had that like huge name value in the UFC, I think he still does, but it's sort of kind of dipped a bit. He lost to Blagoy Ivanov, and that's not a bad loss. I know some people have their thoughts about Blagoy, but I think Blagoy is overall a pretty good fighter. And then Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak is getting better. He's improving, but at that point in time, man, like Tuivasa really looked like he was drowning in that fight. I didn't like what I saw. I know he's been training with AKA, if I recall correctly. He's wrestling, and he looked good against Stefan Struve. But Stefan Struve he's done. He's no longer fighting. He's retired. As for Dante Mays, this potentially might be a spot for him to be a live dog. And I know that sounds weird because we've seen him. He's not the best fighter. He lost to Cyril Gahn, but that's a good win. Like that's a good loss on your record. That's fine. Like I will let that go. Lost to Nascimento by rear naked choke. It really showed his inexperience on the ground, but he did beat Roque. I don't know if they call him Roque Martinez or Rogue Martinez, but he lost to or he beat Martinez in a fight where I actually picked Montel Mays to win by knockout, and he surprised me by going to a decision and ruining my bet. But I did like what I saw from him. He was more composed. He didn't necessarily go for the knockout. He stayed at range. He has every advantage over Tai Tuivasa. He's a 6'6" compared to the 6'2" for Tuivasa. He's got an 81-inch reach compared to the 75-inch reach for Tuivasa. Man, this is a close one. This should not be lined this way whatsoever at all. Like I don't understand it. I I understand why Tuivasa would have the perception of being the better fighter, but I think they're very equally matched up. I know Dontel Mays has the perception of being a shittier fighter, but I think he's not as shitty as people are thinking. I I personally will take a small bet on Dontel Mays just for the hell of it at those odds at heavyweight, especially from what I've seen from Mays that he's improved and what I know of Tai Tuivasa where his weaknesses are, and especially with that deficiency in the height and reach. I'll go for it. Screw it. Even if he gets knocked out in the first round, whatever. I just cannot see myself betting on Tuivasa. if he wins this one in impressive fashion, implements like say a ground game, I'll reevaluate Tuivasa. But at this point, I think Dontel Mays has every attribute to beat Tai Tuivasa. So I'll go with Dontel Mays to win this one by second round knockout.
I'm also going with Montel Mays, but the reason I'm going with Montel Mays is his nickname is Lord Kong, and the Godzilla versus Kong movie is coming out fairly soon. But besides that, I'm actually not very high on Tai Tuivasa, man. Especially those love handles freak me the hell out. Those tattooed love handles. Jesus, the jiggle on that wiggle. It's pretty freaky, man. I don't like looking at that, but now there's a couple ways to look at it. Yes, he did lose to Cyril Gain, but it's not like Cyril Gain is basically a kickboxer. Now the way he lost wasn't he didn't get knocked out, TKO'd or anything. He lost by submission to a kickboxer. So that to me, that's big, huge red flag. And he lost to Rodrigo Nascimento, who I was kind of, high on right before his last fight against Chris Daukaus. Chris Daukaus pieced him up. So he anyway, that derailed Nascimento. And yes, he did beat Roque Martinez by decision, which is okay, I guess. But Roque Martinez is 5'10", 265 or whatever, in the heavyweight division. So this guy's shorter than I am. Tai Tuivasa, both of these guys are, I guess, kind of on the same level with regards to skill set. And wow, I just noticed Ty's only 28 years old, but I guess maybe I thought he was older because of the fights that he's had. But yeah, man, this guy needs to eat, maybe a few more. It wouldn't kill him to eat a few salads, man. I mean, this guy's a fighter. Would it kill him to be in at least decent shape coming into these fights? Yeah, he's a heavyweight, but that doesn't mean he has to cut weight from 365 pounds down to 265. Be a little bit professional and come in, show some pride. Anyway, Tai Tuivasa, his last win is against Stefan Struve, which is significantly taller, the tallest guy, I guess, in there. Against Montel Mays, who's I don't think he's as tall as Stefan Struve, but he is taller than Tai Tuivasa. I think maybe Ty's going to have that advantage where he's kind of reaching up to. I don't know. This is really not the greatest of fights, and I think I spent way too much time on this. Hard to say. I'll just say I'm not taking a side. I'll just say this goes a distance. Yeah, this is a pretty bad fight.
In our co-main event, we've got the return of Gregor the Gift Gillespie versus Brad Quake Riddell. And I'll read you off the line real quick because Gregor Gillespie is at a minus 205. The return on Brad Riddell plus 175. My initial thought was that loss to Kevin Lee, which was quite spectacular, was really going to bring down the cost on Gregor Gillespie. I thought this would be more of a pick'em because Brad Riddell is a damn good kickboxer, and he's really impressed me over his last few wins, especially the Magomed Mustafayev fight, where he really demonstrated that the best takedown defense is a left hook or a right hook or just a straight punch, man, because he put down Mustafayev with an overhand right, and that really dictated the rest of the fight. Like Mustafayev was hesitant. He attempted takedowns, but his confidence just went out. But yeah, it's like he's been very impressive. As for Gillespie, he also has been impressive. He's handled every single guy that was given to him accordingly because his wrestling is just superior. The one loss in his record is against Kevin Lee, and frankly, Kevin Lee's not one of the greatest fighters in that division. He talks himself up, although he's like 17-6 right now. Kevin Lee, that is, he does possess certain parts of his game that gives dudes problems. Like his head kicks have always been really good. Like he throws them so smoothly, and the way he set up Gregor Gillespie was beautiful. That is a concern, right? Like I know that was a year and a half ago almost. So that should be enough time for Gregor Gillespie to, as you would say, unscramble his brains. It's just concerning going up against a really good kickboxer who has ever improving takedown defense. I will say though, if Gregor gets Brad Riddell down, I don't care how good his takedown defense is. I don't think he's going to let him back up. I think he will dominate Brad Riddell on the ground. So I understand the price for Gregor Gillespie, but this is a really close, maybe even a dog or pass fight because I can't count out Brad Riddell. The thing is, though, I do see where he's lacking in his fighting, like his last fight with Alex De Silva. De Silva really went after him in the first round. He took him down and surprised me. He ended up getting the decision, but it does concern me that if Gregor Gillespie does get him down, it's over. Really, I don't think Gregor's going to ease up on him. It's a really close matchup, in my opinion. The odds should be a pick 'em, just based on you know Brad Riddell can throw a head kick and Gregor Gillespie doesn't know how to handle those. So I can see Gregor getting knocked out. But personally, honestly, I do see that he's recovered from that last knockout. I don't think he's going to try to stand up like he tried with Kevin Lee. I don't know why he was so damn hesitant to wrestle with Kevin Lee because he should have been shooting for takedowns and holding him up against the cage and just beating him up as he usually does. But I don't know. He just got full of himself. I don't think he's going to play that game with Brad Riddell. So I will go with Gillespie to win this one. I can even see him finishing Brad Riddell in maybe like the later rounds, like the second portion of the second round or in the third round. But it's hard for me not to go with Gillespie based on knowing that if he takes him down, that's pretty much it for Brad Riddell. Like it's going to be rinse and repeat because once you get Brad Riddell down, it's going to be really hard for him to explode back up because that's what he was doing with Mustafayev. He would explode, and Mustafayev was just so shook that he just couldn't control him. I don't think Gregor Gillespie will have that issue. I hate to backtrack, but damn, Brad Riddell can really catch Gregor Gillespie in the first round and knock him out. But it's going to be a fun one. But I'll still go with Gillespie to get this one by a decision. Uh, yeah, Gillespie to gets this one by decision.
Yeah, wasn't Gregor Gillespie known as the second coming of like wrestling or something? Yeah, I remember for the Kevin Lee fight, it was being billed as like, oh, Kevin Lee's gonna face the best wrestler that, since Mick Foley or something. Um, since Mick Foley's also from Long Island or somewhere around there. Anyway, and we all know what happened with him. He got his brain scrambled in that one. But I think a year and a half is maybe enough time. I don't, I don't see Gregor Gillespie. I see Gregor as the guy coming forward in this fight versus Brad. I see the guy, I see him on the defensive, trying to outstrike Gregor. But I think looking at their height and reach, which is, these guys are on par, with their physical attributes. I think it's going to come down to if Gregor implements that, his ground game, which I think he will. I think Brad's going to probably try to take his head off in the first, maybe going into the second round. But once Gregor gets that, gets his distance and timing on Brad Riddell, I think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna piece him up on the feet, but for sure he's gonna. I don't think this is gonna be the most exciting fight of the night for sure. Once Gregor gets him on the ground, he's just gonna kind of hold him there and get the 29-28 split, or even by split decision. I can see this, depending on how aggressive Brad Riddell is. But yeah, I see Gregor gifting Brad Riddell that L.
In our main event, we've got a matchup between Derek Brunson and the Trailblazer Kevin Holland. Currently, the odds are plus 145 for Derek Brunson, minus 170 for Kevin Holland.
Oh man,
What can I really say about Kevin Holland? He had one of the best breakout years in 2020. by just beating everybody. He refused to take a break. He knocked out Anthony Hernandez 9 months ago. He knocked out Joaquin Buckley 7 months ago. He went to a split with Darren Stewart 5 months ago. He knocked out the great Charlie Ontiveros, 4 months ago? And then 2 months ago, he knocked out the actual great Jacare Souza on the ground. And man, like I wanted to talk about that particular fight because I think that's a moment where it just proved that Kevin Holland is the guy. And frankly, I think he might be the next guy to fight Israel Adesanya and maybe even give him a really tough fight. Because when we talked about that fight, we were concerned, like, what if Jacare takes him down? Because Jacare, regardless of him being 100 years old, he's still Jacare. He's still got that grappling prowess, that death grip of jujitsu. And Kevin Holland went out there without a care in the world. He goes out, strikes with Jacare. Jacare takes him down. And what I saw in that match just made me think, like, Kevin Holland is something special. He he wraps up Jacare in attempting to get him in a triangle, and then he holds him in mission control and throws elbows at his fucking head. And it just like, wow. And those were some really hard elbows. So much so that Jacare essentially just said, like, I don't want to play in his guard. And then we know what happened. On his back, he's praising him, telling him, like, oh, I've dreamt about this when I was a kid. And then he proceeds to knock him out with the craziest right hook from the ground and then just demolishes him. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in my entire life. And it was incredibly impressive. And I don't want to discredit Derek Brunson because although Derek Brunson, we can say, yeah, he lost to Jacare twice. He couldn't handle Jacare. He he is a respectable fighter. I know he's lost to Israel as well, but his last few fights have really demonstrated his progression in the sport, where he's really calming down. He's not burning out his gas tank going 100 miles an hour. He decisioned Elias Theodorou and essentially kicked him out of the UFC, which was like, hey, props to you, Derek Brunson. He beats Ian Heinisch by essentially being calm, letting Ian Heinisch really gas himself out and just dominating from then on forward. And then he destroyed Edmund Shabazian. Man, everyone was super high on Edmund, and Derek Brunson, using the power of the blonde hair and the power of the all great Kevin Randleman, destroys him on the ground. And it was impressive, especially for his age. He's 37 years old. I just unfortunately see Kevin Holland being the guy that knocks out Derek Brunson again, because Derek Brunson, although his game plan has really evolved, it really revolves around the other guy kind of gassing out and getting tired. I doubt I'm going to see Kevin Holland gas out or get tired. I think he's just so damn crafty. I think he's just so damn good. He should be ranked higher, in my opinion, in that division. But man, he's got everything going for him. He's a taller guy, 81-inch reach compared to the 77-inch reach for Brunson. He's 6'3" compared to 6'1" for Brunson. I Unfortunately, as much as I like Derek Brunson, I see him losing this matchup. I think Kevin Holland, he's just too damn good. I know if Brunson really implements a grappling heavy attack, even then I can't see Kevin Holland not doing something significant on his back or against the cage. So I'll have to go with Kevin Holland on this one. I think his streak is just getting started. I think he's going to give Israel Adesanya his toughest fight once they fight. So I'll go with Kevin Holland to win this one by second round knockout.
Well, Derek did derail the hype train that was Shabazian, and like pretty much 99% of the people out there. That bastard let me down. I jumped on that hype train without, actually realizing, what what Derek Brunson brought to the table. This time around, however, I think, well, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I think Kevin Holland is going to TKO Derek Brunson, similar to what Adesanya did. I see this fight going very, very similar to that fight. I think I foresee maybe a third or fourth round TKO by Kevin Holland, and that's mainly due to the fact that Kevin Holland, Derek Brunson, he has a habit of losing to some of the best guys in the division. He's lost to Adesanya, to Souza, to Anderson Silva, to Whitaker. He lost to Yoel Romero. But really, where I think Derek Brunson's career took a turn for the worst was when he lost to Kendall Grove back in 2012. I think his career was on an upswing, and then boom, he loses to Kendall Grove, and then it became a slippery slope of losing to the best guys in the division. He just cannot seem to get over that hump, and I don't think he gets over the hump known as Kevin Holland. I think that Kendall Grove loss has resonated with him and has haunted him his entire career. And the reason I say that one jokingly, but two, you have to look at Kendall Grove's physical attributes. He's basically what do you call those things? Like a stick bug, He's like a broom with brooms for limbs. He's like his torso's a broom, and then he has brooms for limbs. So he has a problem with, basically what I'm trying to say is he has a problem with rangy guys, and I don't think this is going to be any different with Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland, I think, besides having the range and the height advantage, I think he has a better chin. I think he's going to outlast Derek Brunson, because Derek Brunson, when he gets even in I guess from medium to significant trouble, I would say, he just he starts swinging wildly. He becomes the middleweight Ngannou, and guys that have that sniper jab or cross or right or whatever or straight, they just tend to piece him up. And so yeah, I see this being a repeat performance from Kevin Holland, a la Israel Adesanya, piecing up Derek Brunson and getting a third, fourth round TKO.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say that Kendall Grove was the Takanori Gomi of that division.
No, no, Kendall Grove is he's the Kendall Grove of that division. He's if anything, I think actually on Kevin Holland's side, he did lose to, where is he? Rafael Lovato Jr. back in Legacy. That was his Takanori Gomi loss. I think where his career started to take a downturn until he just turned it up in 2020. Man, after that Brendan Allen loss, he's like, nope, I don't want to face, or rather, he realized he doesn't have to face Maheta or Maleta anymore in the middleweight division since Maleta moved up. He's like, screw that, I'm gonna take out all these guys, beginning with Anthony Hernandez, and he had a hell of a 2020. I was actually surprised that he wasn't in the contention for 2020 Fighter of the Year. I would have definitely voted for him, or maybe he was or he wasn't. I don't know. But I think Kevin Holland, yeah, for sure, he's being overlooked here, and I think maybe Derek Brunson is looking too much into his win over Shabazian. Shabazian just was not ready for prime time just yet. He may be one day. I don't know if he moves to an actual, like, to a good camp.
Outside of Glendale, is what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah. If he moves to an actual MMA camp, they'll fill the holes that you need, basically. But I don't know. I think he's gonna just stay there. I think he's a loyal guy. Fortunately for him, so he's probably, I don't know. This guy hasn't even fought since then, so who knows what's going on there. Anyway, enough about Shabazian and the Glendale crew. Yeah, I think Kevin Holland's going to take this third, fourth round TKO. Unfortunately for Derek Brunson, it's just another. It's going to be another repeat of losing to the best guys in the division, losing to long rangy guys, a la Kendall Grove. Again, this is something that's haunted him ever since, and he loses to tall, rangy guys. So in his next fight, he's probably going to call out Takanori Gomi for his retirement fight, or talk him out of retirement. I think Takanori Gomi's retired already, right?
Yeah, retired over a win against. Oh my God, he did cocaine. Also dyed his hair blonde. Lightweight.
Rampage Jackson.
No, not
No.
right. Lightweight. Oh my God, lost to Diaz via choke. Lost
Oh,
to
Melvin Guillard.
Melvin Gillard. Yeah, yeah, he knocked out Melvin Gillard in Japan. Then I think he retired on a high note. But what you're saying is that Derek Brunson should call him out for a retirement fight.
Pretty much, yeah. Should call him out. Try to get back on track with the win, but Takanori Gomi is going to come in with those fireball fists. Just take him out.
I really hope no one translates this podcast to Takanori Gomi because he'll fly over here and kick our ass.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, at least we'll be in the same sphere as that guy from Monster. Where we'll be forcing Takanori Gomi to take pictures with us before he beats our ass for clout.
Well, those have been our picks for UFC Fight Night Brunson versus Holland. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below if our picks are good or if they're trash. We also appreciate it if you gave us a like, share, subscribe, especially. For those of you who have been commenting and subscribing, we really appreciate it. Putting together these videos have been really fun. I really appreciate everyone who's really supporting us and behind us. But again, those have been our picks for UFC Fight Night Brunson versus Holland, and we'll catch you at the next fight.